Two tails, one head, yang yang. Two tails, one head. Yang yang. Two tails, one head, yang yang. This is the trigram Qian Heaven. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Three tails. Old yin. a little treat in store. It's been a while since I've done extra readings, but Noah last night picked Jim Carrey's How Roland Rolls, and it stood out, so we're gonna read it and then jump into the I Ching reading for Jackson, illustrated by Rob Masson. Somewhere in the middle of the deep blue sea, a wave named Roland came to be. He was headed for something, big dreams and goals, and he made lots of good friends, 'cause that's how he rolls. But one day, a big ship cut right between them. And a week or two later, he still hadn't seen them. It's like a whole thing. That's when a whale jumped way up in the air. And when he came down, Roland was splashed everywhere. Poor Roland felt lonely. He cried salty tears, and soon he was facing the worst of his fears. A wave they called gnarly, using maximum suction, could suck Roland up and cause major destruction. But after chewing on a sailboat, old Gnarly calmed down, and the sailboat was lost, but the sailors were found. It'll be okay, Lee. Don't worry about it. With a wave of relief, soon Roland was met by a funny old seabird who loved to get wet. His old feathers tickled, their new friendship grew, and the old bird introduced him to a wave that he knew. Her name was Shimmer, because up on her crest the sun made her glimmer like he liked her the best. And they rolled on together for thousands of days. They made thousands of ripples that went thousands of ways. Yes, Roland and Shimmer thought love was just grand, but then Roland was told that life ends in the sand. That the coast is a place that a wave can't go past, unless you're like Gnarly, and even then you won't last. So the day they saw land, it gave them both such a fright. But Roland kept rolling, and Shimmer stayed bright. And they crashed on the beach together that night. Now they thought it would hurt when they got mixed together, yet it just seemed to tickle like the old seabird's feather. They didn't feel different, just bigger somehow, like the fish were all swimming inside of them now. Then down they went, whoosh, in one swooshy motion. And when they got deep, they were struck by a notion. We're not little waves, we're this whole big wide ocean. And suddenly every wave they ever knew was right there to greet them, and the ripples came too. And they saw that together they played a much bigger role. They were in every ice cube between the North and South Pole, in all of the rivers and all of the streams. The puddles, the pools, and Mom's iron when it steams. They fill up the sink that you wash your bowl in. And when you're sad, even your tears are Roland. Now Roland has everything, which was one of his goals, and he's happy to share it, because that's how he rolls. Like Roland and Shimmer, you will always belong. If you think you're just one little wave, you're just wrong. You're like Roland, and you'll always be rolling along. The end. All right. Now we'll do a little I Ching reading. Solid, solid, solid is how we will read our first or bottom trigram or inner trigram, which is Qian Heaven. Qian is suprahuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change and what endures within it. He confronts us with truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and also the challenge of individual calling experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the Northwest, the realm between autumn and winter when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. And our top or outer trigram for our primary hexagram will be read as solid, solid, broken. This is the trigram. Dewy, lake or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share, and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others, and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. Dewy lake or marsh above Qian Heaven give us the primary hexagram 43. Once our sixth line, our top line, transforms from old yin to young yang, that will give us the top trigram for our supporting hexagram of solid, 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 which again is Qian Heaven. And so Qian Heaven above Qian Heaven give us hexagram 1. We will get the titles to our hexagrams from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature and is absolutely brilliant. Hexagram 43, I-ming calls parting, detachment from discriminating consciousness, repelling the energy of external influences. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all, is hexagram 1, heaven. One of the 4 timeless hexagrams, pure yang. It represents strength, firmness, life, innate knowledge, primal unified energy. So together we have parting and then heaven. Sounds like parting heaven. Like the clouds are parting. So we will start by reading from Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future, which is a nice introductory I Ching commentary that's still quite profound. Hexagram 43, she calls deciding. Key questions. What do you stand for? How do you define yourself? What belongs in your realm, and where do you need to make a clean break? When we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Oracle, deciding, tell it in the king's chambers. With truth, call out, there is danger. Notify your own city. Fruitless to take up arms. Fruitful to have a direction to go. The old Chinese character for deciding shows a hand holding up a token, asserting your identity and right to be heard, even in the king's chambers. This is where decision begins, at the very center of power. That center might be inside your own mind and yet still not feel safe. Declaring the truth loud and clear is dangerous. It stirs up old ghosts, inner and outer, yet better this than ignoring and neglecting them. As the message of the decision spreads out from the center, it is fruitless to take up arms. This is a time to communicate, not fight. It will serve you better to focus with clear intention on what you're moving towards, rather than what you're reacting against. Image. Lake above heaven, deciding. A noble one distributes riches to reach those below. She dwells in power and virtue and also shuns things. A lake above heaven is a cloud, sharing the blessing of rain and always pure, never in contact with the mud. The noble one's generosity is like this. A pure, inspired expression of her character without ulterior motive. She gives and also knows what to stay away from. Sequence. Deciding follows from hexagram 42, increasing. Increasing and not reaching an end must mean breakthrough, and so deciding follows. Deciding means breaking through. As more and more is poured in, the limits must surely break. Instead of traveling with the cycle from increase to decrease, you take a positive decision to use and share the blessing. Pair. Deciding forms a pair with hexagram 44, coupling. Coupling means meeting, supple meets firm. Deciding means breaking up, firm breaks up supple. Hexagram 43 has 5 firm, unbroken lines pushing out a single supple, open line. They embody an assertion of identity that breaks through indecision. In hexagram 44, the single open line finds its way back. And our supporting hexagram puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Hexagram 1, Hilary Barrett calls creative force. Key questions: how can you liberate creative energy? What wants to be created? Oracle, creative force, from the source, creating success. Constancy bears fruit. This is the pure creative spirit that flows through people and events. It drives towards manifestation and inspiration that wants to be realized. It begins with an opening to the source of the creative impulse, not plans or intentions, but the vital energy that powers them. Then you create success by sustaining a continuous two-way flow between source and action. You step into the heart of a process of creation, welcome its momentum, and find ways to join and work with it. Through constancy, this brings out intrinsic potential and yields a harvest of positive results. To be constant is to be true to your intent, faithfully aligning all your choices with your original vision and carrying your understanding through into practice and over time. Image, the heavens move ceaselessly. A noble one in his own strength does not pause. Creative force is the absolute power of heaven that moves the stars in their courses and makes the seasons turn. A noble one finds this creative force is within him, as close as his own breath. It does not need to pause and rest, and nor does he.
Drag on.
Pair. Hexagram 1 is paired with and contrasted with hexagram 2. Creative heaven with the receptive earth. They are the cosmic father and mother. Creative force is firm, the earth is open. Hexagram 1 has 6 firm yang lines. Hexagram 2 has 6 open yin lines. The two together bring the world into being, idea and work, outpouring and receiving, inspiration and manifestation. Hexagram 1 marks a time for pure creativity rather than for questions about what might be possible in practice. We will next turn to our changing line 6 of our primary hexagram, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here's some places you may find yourself, takes precedence over all other elements, and is the most focused part of the reading. Line 6 has the general context, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Hexagram 43, changing line 6. Hexagram 43 again is called deciding in Hilary Barrett's translation. Line 6, not calling out, in the end, pitfall. The oracle speaks of calling out with truth. If truth goes unspoken, perhaps out of fear or a desire to keep it in a pure state of potential or a conviction of self-sufficiency, then there will be misfortune in the end. Next, we will look at I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which again he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. Hexagram 43, I-ming calls parting. Parting is lauded in the royal court. The call of truth involves danger. Addressing one's own domain, it is not beneficial to go right to war, but it is beneficial to go somewhere. Explanation. Parting is separating and leaving. In the body of the hexagram, 1 yin is on top of 5 yangs. Yang is about to become pure, while yin is about to disappear. The qualities of the hexagram are strength and harmony, harmoniously acting with strength, strong but not violent. It equally has the meaning of using yang to get rid of yin, so it is called parting. This hexagram represents repelling yin by yang. It follows on the previous hexagram, reduction. In reduction, one stills rejoicing and does not rejoice arbitrarily, so as to foster yang and repel yin, using inherent sane energy to repel the energy of external influences. The energy of external influences is invited by the discriminatory consciousness, so if you want to repel external influences, nothing is better than to first part with the discriminatory consciousness. After people get mixed up in temporal conditioning, the discriminatory consciousness takes charge of affairs. Wine and sex distract them from reality. The lure of wealth deranges their nature. Emotions and desires well forth at once. Thoughts and ruminations arise in a tangle, and the mind ruler is lost in confusion. Because habituation becomes second nature over a long period of time, it cannot be abruptly removed. It is necessary to work on the matter in a serene and equanimous way, according to the time. Eventually, discrimination will cease and the original spirit will return. The human mind will sublimate and the mind of Tao will be complete. Again, you will see the original self. But this discriminating consciousness is loved by the human mind. If you want to part from it, it is best first to clarify the mind. Once the mind is clarified, the mind of Tao appears, and the discriminatory consciousness is easily dismissed. Therefore, parting is lauded in the royal court. The royal court is the abode of the mind ruler, where true and false are distinguished. When the mind clearly understands true and false, then the mind is not deluded by the discriminatory consciousness and easily parts from it. But since the discriminatory consciousness has been in charge of things for so long, its roots are deep and its authority is tremendous. One cannot attack it impetuously, but must find the right way between intensity and laxity before it is possible to settle anything. When the text says the call of truth, it means the true mind and genuine intent as the means to amass sane energy. When it says involves danger, it means caution and wariness is the way to ward off aberrant energy. Addressing one's own domain means refining the self. It is not beneficial to go right to war, means to wait for the proper time. Once one has been able to amass the right kind of energy and ward off the wrong kind of energy, and also has refined oneself, awaiting the proper time to act, myriad objects are all empty, and there is just the discriminating consciousness alone. Take advantage of the right time to detach from this, and there will be unfailing benefit. The qualities of the hexagram are strength and harmony, serene without pressure, awaiting the right time to act. This seems to be the secret of parting from yin. And we will take a look at our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. I-ming calls hexagram 1 heaven. Heaven creates, develops, brings about fruition and consummation. Explanation. Heaven is sound, in the sense of being strong and indomitable. The lines making up the body of this hexagram are all odd. This represents pure yang, so it is called heaven. This hexagram represents the advance of yang, whereby the science of building life acts with strength and uses the path of firmness. In strength, nothing is stronger than heaven. Heaven, as the Tao, is a flow of unitary energy, circulating continuously, never ceasing. There is nothing it does not cover, nothing that can harm it. This is the ultimate of soundness and strength. Therefore, producing things in spring is the creativity of strength. Creation means the beginning, the first arising of positive energy. When positive energy is born, all things sprout. Such is the strength of creativity. Developing things in summer is the growth of strength. Development is extension, the expansion of positive energy. As positive energy expands, all things develop and flourish. Such is the strength of development. Maturing things in autumn is the fruition of strength. Fruition is goodness, the proper benefit of positive energy. When positive energy achieves its proper benefit, all things come to fruition. Such is the strength of fruition. Storing things in winter is the consummation of strength. Consummation is quiescence, the resting of positive energy. When positive energy rests quietly, all things return to their root. Such is the strength of consummation. Creation, development, fruition, consummation, the successive movements of the 4 seasons, all carried out by one strength. The one is the body, the 4 are the function. The body is that whereby the function is carried out. The function is that whereby the body is completed. Body and function are as one. Therefore, the Tao of heaven acts with strength unceasing. As for human beings, they first take form sustained by the energy of heaven, so they have the quality of strength of heaven inherent in them, and hence have this creativity, development, fruition, and consummation, the functions of strength. The quality of strength in people is original innate knowledge, the sane primal energy. This is called true yang, or the truly unified vitality, or the truly unified energy. Confucianism speaks of singleness of mind. Taoism speaks of embracing the one. Buddhism speaks of returning to the one. All of them simply teach people to cultivate this strong, sound, sane energy. This energy is rooted in the primordial, concealed in the temporal. It is not more in sages, not less in ordinary people. At the time of birth, it is neither defiled nor pure, neither born nor extinct, neither material nor void. It is tranquil and unstirring, yet sensitive and effective. In the midst of myriad things, it is not restricted or constrained by myriad things. Fundamentally, it creates, develops, and brings about fruition and consummation spontaneously. All this taking place in unminding action, not needing force. It comes spontaneously from nature, not forceful yet strong, strong yet not forceful. Strength having no perceptible form or trace is referred to as the celestial human. Once it mixes with acquired temporal conditioning, temperament appears and is seduced by objects. The essential intimacy of heaven and humanity then becomes estranged by habit. People abandon the real and give recognition to the artificial, so innate knowledge is obscured. At this point, creation is not creative, development is not developmental, fruition is not fruitful, and consummation is not consummate. The quality of strength is already lacking, so the functions of strength are not what they are anymore. The spirit is dim, the energy is polluted, essence is disturbed, life is shaken. Though the body moves, positive energy dissipates, and death is inevitable. This is why the sages have the science of building life, to restore the primordial in the midst of the temporal, whereby it is possible to sustain the original qualities of the strength of heaven, never to decay. The method of cultivation and practice is none other than this function of creation, development, fruition, and consummation. When people can see through everything, look deeply into themselves, and turn around to set their minds on essence and life, then in the midst of trance, there will be a point of living potential that will subtly emerge. This is the creation of strength. If people can cultivate and nurture this single-mindedly, putting it into actual practice, persevering indefatigably, acting so as to achieve their aim, this is the development of strength. If people can cultivate their vital spirit and powerfully go forward so that strong energy is stabilized, objects do not obstruct them, and life and death are as one. This is the fruition of strength. If people can investigate things and attain knowledge, distinguish what is so and what is not, what is wrong and what is right, staying in what is appropriate and not deviating from it, this is the consummation of strength. Creation is whereby that strength is born. Development is whereby that strength is expanded. Fruition is whereby that strength is fulfilled. Consummation is whereby that strength is consolidated. Creation, development, fruition, and consummation are functions of one energy. Starting from effort, you end up in spontaneity, integrating completely with natural principle. Then this is the original face of innate knowledge, whereby you can share in the function of heaven and share in the eternity of heaven. However, in this science, there are medicinal substances, there is a firing process, there is a course of work, there is intensification and relaxation, there is stopping at sufficiency. You can advance into its marvels only if you practice it according to its laws and develop it with the appropriate timing. If you deviate in the slightest, you will fail altogether. If one of the four aspects, creation, development, fruition, or consummation, is lacking, then the quality of strength will not be complete and life will not be your own. So it is necessary to know this firing process of advancing yang. We'll next go back and read our changing line 6 to our primary hexagram 43, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. Takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 6 has the general context beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 6 of hexagram 43. Parting. Changing line 6. No call. In the end, there is misfortune. Explanation. At the end of parting, the aggregate of mundanity has receded, leaving only the single mundanity of the discriminatory consciousness as yet undissolved. At that time, it should be parted with, and its force then must pass away. When the celestial energy makes one more advance, the mundane energy will then dissolve. Therefore, there is no call. In the end, there is misfortune. No call of mundane energy is none other than the call of truth, of celestial energy. The final misfortune of mundane energy is the ultimate fortune of celestial energy. This is parting in which the celestial energy becomes pure and complete, while mundane energy vanishes entirely. So in the path of parting from mundanity, it will not do to be too adamant or too yielding. One must have flexibility within firmness, and firmness within flexibility. Parting gradually, advancing a portion of celestial energy, repelling a portion of mundanity, so that celestial energy advances to wholeness, and mundanity spontaneously sublimates. If you don't know how to operate the process with appropriate intensity and relaxation, and wish to accomplish it rapidly, that will on the contrary foster mundane energy and damage celestial energy, so that after all, you will be unable to repel mundanity. So the path of repelling mundanity requires deep understanding of process. We will also turn to the commentary sections for each of our hexagrams. Hexagram 3, parting. Lake above, heaven below. Moisture ascends to heaven, which parts with it. Thus do superior people distribute blessings to reach those below, while avoiding presumption of virtue. Parting is a bursting forth. Above is lake and below is heaven. Moisture ascends to heaven, then changes into rain and waters myriad creatures. It is as though heaven is being unselfish and parts with the moisture to let it flow down. This is the image of parting. What superior people see in this is that just as myriad creatures grow when there is moisture in the sky, so are the people secure and peaceful when those above have benevolence. Therefore they distribute blessings to reach those below, causing everyone to benefit from their kindness. To distribute to those below is to distribute blessings. If one distributes blessings unself-consciously, then the giving is great. The generosity is real. This is like heaven covering everything and giving life to all creatures. This is what is meant by the saying, those of great virtue do not consider themselves virtuous. They are companions of heaven. If one is conscious of distribution of blessings being virtuous, this is presumption of virtue. There is still selfishness in the heart, and the distribution of blessings will not endure. This is not to be considered virtue. This is what those who distribute blessings are to strictly avoid. Therefore, superior people view others and self as the same. Distributing blessings, they do not expect any reward. They have virtue but do not presume upon it, so their virtue grows day by day, while their minds grow humbler day by day. They part with all self-satisfaction and self-importance. This comes about as inevitably as moisture in the sky falls to the earth. Working on the Tao, accumulating achievement and building up practice, carrying out such and such expedients to benefit others, is like distributing blessings to people. But many who carry out expedients to benefit others do so without genuine sincerity. Some do it for reputation, some do it for profit. Some make an ineffective outward show of helping people based on ancient models and then blame others when things don't go quite as they wish. These are all cases of having no virtue yet presuming on virtue, and are not worthy of the name of benefiting others. Observe how heaven bestows blessings on myriad creatures. Does it expect any reward from them? Not expecting any reward from myriad creatures, heaven has virtue but does not presume upon it. If even heaven does not presume upon its virtue, how much less is the virtue of ordinary people to be presumed upon? Whenever one does anything for the benefit of others, if one can emulate heaven in not presuming upon virtue, one's virtue will not fail to be great. And hexagram 1, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 1, heaven, heaven above, heaven below. The activity of heaven is powerful. Superior people thereby strengthen themselves ceaselessly. Heaven is the celestial, its quality is power. In this image, heaven is above and below. This is the image of the unified energy of heaven, which flows ceaselessly above and below, acting powerfully. What superior people see in this is that since humans originate from the energy of heaven, they have this powerful quality of heaven. This power originally flows unceasing and uninterrupted, but because of mixture with acquired conditioning, people abandon the real and enter the artificial, strengthening what should not be strengthened, so as a result there is at times interruption of the flow of the original celestial power. Therefore, superior people work on the flow of the original celestial power. Nope. Therefore, superior people work on the activation of the celestial power, temporarily using the artificial to cultivate the real, restoring the primal while in the midst of the temporal, strengthening themselves ceaselessly. Strength means unbending firmness and strength, which myriad things cannot move. If one can strengthen oneself ceaselessly, then wholesome energy is always present, and one has inner autonomy. Wealth cannot make one decadent, poverty cannot move one, authority and force cannot suppress one. One does not act without propriety. One does not abide in untruth. One does not wreak injustice. Whether in pleasant or unpleasant circumstances, this strength is everywhere, never ceasing. Such action is as it were celestial. But there are people who are powerful in a worldly sense. There are people who are powerful yet are drawn by things to use their power externally. There are also people who can sometimes strengthen themselves, who start out diligently but end up slacking off, who follow the path but give up along the way. Genuine work of self-strengthening is all a matter of not ceasing. If there is any slacking off, if there is any personal desire, it cannot be called strength. It cannot be called self-strengthening. Only ceaseless self-strengthening can reach total integration with the celestial design, the indestructible, permanent state. Heaven is the order of life. Life is the quality of power, which is the original, vast, true energy. Because it has neither shadow nor form, yet is lively and active, flowing ceaselessly, it is called energy. Because it is most great and most strong, filling the universe, it is called power. Because it is the master of myriad beings, the progenitor of yin and yang, the root of creation, it is called the order of life. Energy, power, life, all are one strength. The work of life building is consummated in self-strengthening without cease. This is the science of following the pattern of heaven. We'll also turn to James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, which I've left links to in the description box below. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself, and he has synthesized several I Ching commentaries and put them in one helpful place. He also adds helpful editor's notes and quotes from things like the Kabbalah or Carl Jung. Hexagram 43, our primary hexagram, he calls resoluteness. Other titles might be breakthrough, the symbol of decision, resolution, determination, parting, removing corruption, eradication, judgment, leg. Recognizing the risks involved in criminal prosecution, justice demands a resolute proof of the culprit's guilt in the royal court. One informs one's own city that armed force is not necessary. In this way, progress is assured. Wilhelm/Bain's breakthrough. One must resolutely make the matter known at the court of the king. It must be announced truthfully. Danger. It is necessary to notify one's own city. It does not further to resort to arms. It furthers one to undertake something. Blofeld. Resolution. When a proclamation is made at the court of the king, frankness in revealing the true state of affairs is dangerous. In vital matters, frankness may prove dangerous. In making announcements to the people of his own city, it is not fitting for the ruler to carry arms. It is better to repose trust in our own people. It is favorable to have some goal or destination. Lu, determination. Someone is proud in the king's court, and the king trusts him. If one exposes the truth, danger. It must be told to one's own people. Using force does not benefit. It does benefit to do something else. You must decide how to deal with a situation before it reaches a dangerous point, or things will take their own course and overwhelm you. Ritzema/Karcher, parting. Displaying tending towards kingly chambers, conforming, crying out, possessing adversity. Notifying originates from the capital. Not harvesting, approaching arms. Harvesting, possessing directed going. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of separation and diverging directions. It emphasizes that resolutely dividing your energies is the adequate way to handle it. Cleary 1, parting, is lauded in the royal court. The call of truth involves danger, addressing one's own domain. It is not beneficial to go right to war, but it is beneficial to go somewhere. The royal court is the abode of the mind ruler, where true and false are distinguished. The image, leg. The image of the waters of a marsh mounting over heaven forms resoluteness. The superior man, in accordance with this, does not hoard his wealth, but shares it with his subordinates. Wilhelm/Baines, the lake has risen up to heaven, the image of breakthrough. Thus, the superior man dispenses riches downward and refrains from resting on his virtue. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes a marshy lake being drawn, sucked towards the sky. The superior man distributes his emoluments to those below. Dwelling in virtue, he renounces them. Lu, the lake ascends to heaven, symbolizing determination. The superior man distributes wealth below him without displaying his favors. Ritsima/Karcher, above marsh with respect to heaven, parting. A Chunsu uses spreading out benefits to extend to the below. A Chunsu, or chief son or superior person, uses residing in actualizing Tao, by consequence keeping aloof. Actualized Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, D, acquiring that which makes a being what it is meant to be. We read this one, but I like it. This is from Lu I-ming's Taoist teaching. Cleary 1, moisture ascends to heaven, which parts with it. Thus do superior people distribute blessings to reach those below, while avoiding presumption of virtue. After people get mixed up in temporal conditioning, the discriminatory consciousness takes charge of affairs. Wine and sex distract them from reality. The lure of wealth deranges their nature. Emotions and desires well forth at once. Thoughts and ruminations arise in a tangle, and the mind ruler is lost in confusion. Because habituation becomes second nature, over a long period of time, it cannot be abruptly removed. It is necessary to work on the matter in a serene and equanimous way, according to the time. Eventually, discrimination will cease, and the original spirit will return. The human mind will sublimate, and the mind of Tao will be complete. Again, you will see the original self. Wu, the marsh rises to heaven. This is eradication. Thus the Chunsi, or chief son or superior person, distributes his emolument to those below and is loath to monopolize virtues. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Resoluteness is the symbol of displacing or removing. We see the dynamic lines displacing the magnetic line. The figure displays the attributes of strength and cheerfulness. There is displacement, but harmony continues. The exhibition of the criminal's guilt in the royal court is shown by the magnetic line mounted on 5 dynamic lines. The awareness of danger and appeal for justice makes the matter clear. If he has recourse to arms, what he prefers will soon be exhausted. When the advance of the dynamic lines is complete, there will be an end to displacement. Leg. Resoluteness represents the 3rd month when the last vestige of winter, represented by the 6th line, is about to disappear before the advance of summer. The single yin at the top symbolizes an inferior man, a feudal prince or high minister who is corrupting the government. The 5 yang lines below are the representatives of good order. The lesson of the hexagram is how to remove corruption from the kingdom. He who would do this must do so by the force of his character, more than by the force of arms. Never forgetting the dangerous nature of his undertaking, he must openly denounce the criminal in the court and awaken general sympathy to his cause. Among his own adherents in his own city, he must prevent any tendency to resort to armed conflict. As a worthy statesman, he is not motivated by private feelings. Hu Ping Wen says, if but a single inferior man is left, he is sufficient to make the superior man anxious. If but a single inordinate desire be left in the mind, that is sufficient to disturb the harmony of the heavenly principles. The eradication in both cases must be complete before the labor is ended. Notes and paraphrases judgment. Resoluteness involves astute discernment of what is wrong and a discreet reestablishment of order without polarizing the situation. Be clear in your own strategy, but let common sense be your guide about how much you need to disclose to others. Avoid aggression at all costs. The superior man maintains equilibrium by distributing his energy equitably. He smooths things out. The 43rd hexagram is an image of the eradication of an inferior force from the situation at hand. 5 yang lines resolutely advance on the single yin line, which is about to be pushed out of the hexagram at the top. This is a negative image of the 23rd hexagram, disintegration, which shows the opposite situation of 5 lower yin lines undermining 1 upper yang line. It is instructive to compare the nearly identical message for the superior man in the images of each of these figures. The idea is one of fostering an equitable distribution of energy within the situation. Disintegration and resoluteness required to rectify it are extreme situations requiring extreme measures. Such extremes must always be neutralized through a justly distributed balance of forces. A quote from Plato in the Republic. It's not the concern of law that any one class in the city fare exceptionally well, but it contrives to bring this about for the whole city, harmonizing the citizens by persuasion and compulsion, making them share with one another the benefit that each class is able to bring to the commonwealth. And it produces such men in the city not in order to let them turn whichever way each wants, but in order that it may use them in binding the city together. Compare the nuances of meaning in each translation of the judgment. Wilhelm's is most radical, advising a direct, albeit dangerous, expose of what is wrong. Most of the others imply room for discretion about what needs to be revealed. Diplomacy is the art of knowing when full disclosure only prevents resolution of the problem. Ritzema/Karcher allude to the proper mindset required to manage such situations. A Chun Tzu uses a chief son or superior person residing in actualizing Tao, by consequence keeping aloof. To reside in actualizing Tao is to live directly from one's essence. And when this is associated with keeping aloof, we get an image of quietly rectifying a situation without revealing our purpose or strategy. Psychologically interpreted, resoluteness, like disintegration, depicts an extreme situation which must first be rectified, then prevented from reoccurring through the maintenance of a just balance of power, which is administered by the ego under the will of the self. And we will turn to our supporting hexagram 1, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. James Dekorne calls hexagram 1 the dynamic. Other titles might be the creative, the symbol of heaven, the creative principle, force, the key, creativity, the originating, creative power, primal power, yang, the life force, kundalini, or God the Father, judgment, leg. The dynamic represents what is great and originating, penetrating, advantageous, correct, and firm. Wilhelm/Baines, the creative work's sublime success, furthering through perseverance. Blofeld, the creative principle, sublime success, persistence in a righteous course brings reward. Lu, the creative brings great success, benefiting all through perseverance. Ritzema/Karcher, force, spring growing, harvesting trial. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of the primal spirit power that both creates and destroys. It emphasizes that dynamic, unwearied persisting, the action of force, is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to persist. The image, leg, heaven in its motion gives the idea of strength. The superior man, in accordance with this, nerves himself to ceaseless activity. Wilhelm/Baines, the movement of heaven is full of power. Thus, the superior man makes himself strong and untiring. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes the power of the celestial forces in motion, wherewith the superior man labors unceasingly to strengthen his own character. Lu, heaven moves powerfully, the superior man strengthens himself unceasingly. Ritzema/Karcher, heaven moves persistingly. A Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, uses originating strength not to pause. Clary 1, the activity of heaven is powerful. Superior people thereby strengthen themselves ceaselessly. Wu, heaven moves in full strength. Thus the Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, strives ceaselessly to be self-reliant. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. All things owe their inception to the vast and originating power of the dynamic. It contains all the meaning of the word, heaven. Clouds move, rain falls, and the myriad things appear in their created forms. The sages comprehend the link between the end and the beginning. They understand how the changes of the 6 lines of the hexagram are accomplished, each in its own season. And with this knowledge, they ascend toward heaven as though mounted on 6 dragons. The intent of the dynamic is to transform everything so that it reflects its correct nature, as originally conceived by the mind of heaven. Thereafter, this great harmony is preserved in union and firm correctness. The sage appears aloft, high above all things, and the myriad states are harmoniously united. Leg. For the Chinese, the dragon has been from the earliest times a symbol of dignity, wisdom, sovereignty, and sagehood. It is the symbol of the superior man, and especially the great man, exhibiting all the virtues and attributes of heaven. Although the dragon's home is in the water, it can disport itself on land and also fly through the air. The sage rules in the world of men as heaven rules nature. He sees the connection between the end and the beginning as the law of cause and effect in the operations of nature and human affairs. The various steps in that course are symbolized by the lines of the hexagram, and the ideal sage, conducting his ideal government, is represented as driving through the sky in a carriage drawn by 6 dragons. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. The dynamic is the life force itself. The superior man tirelessly furthers the great work of transformation. The image of a dragon appears in every line of this hexagram, except the 3rd. Like most symbols, the dragon has both a positive and a negative aspect. In Western myth, it is usually an adversary which the hero must conquer before he can obtain a treasure, or often a captive maiden. The Chinese, on the other hand, regard the dragon positively. Blofeld comments, in China, the dragon has always been regarded as a highly admirable creature of celestial origin. Dragons provide rain, make rivers run, and rule the ocean. The European dragon is clearly of another species. This seeming anomaly may say more about how East and West perceive the forces of nature, rather than refer to any true differences in the forces perceived. Wilhelm compares the dragon to the celestial energy within a thunderstorm. As lightning, it can destroy us, but in the form of electricity, it can be harnessed to do useful work. A dragon is nothing if not a huge serpent, and this suggests the idea of the serpent power, or kundalini energy, which, when aroused in the human body, has been likened to a sudden jolt of electricity running up from the base of the spine to the top of the head. The kundalini force is equated in turn with sexual energy, dynamic power which ensures the continuance of all but the most primitive of living organisms. Without the powerful energy of sexuality, life as we know it could not exist. When the dragon remains unconquered in the cave-like depths of the unconscious, the life force autonomously rules our lives, and we become passive vehicles for random desires and appetites. This electricity will flow wherever it finds a circuit of least resistance. And under these conditions, an individual's life is largely created by chance and circumstance. When one begins the work, the task of individuation, one assumes the role of the hero or warrior who does battle with the dragon in order to bring it under his will. This is a great struggle, and success is not guaranteed. But if one is able to control the primordial power of the life force, the treasure, or the maiden, which in the male psyche amounts to the same thing, is obtained. This is tantamount to attaining a higher level of consciousness. In its highest form, it constitutes enlightenment. The symbolism of all of the hexagrams works on many different levels, and this is especially true of the first 2, which must be studied together for a full comprehension of each. Kabbalists, for example, will recognize in these 2 figures the same forces found in Chokmah and Bina on the Tree of Life. I don't know if it's Chokmah or Chokmah, but yeah, that one. For the purposes of this comparison, it must be noted that the first hexagram symbolizes heaven and the second symbolizes earth, force, and form. As consciousness is to the body it inhabits, so force is to form and heaven to earth. Form is magnetic or negative in polarity, and force is dynamic or positive. In esoteric symbolism, heaven does not mean the universe above us. It means the consciousness within us. Jesus said, kingdom of heaven is within you, right? This polarity is also reflected in the relationship between the ego and the self. In a properly regulated psyche, the ego is always magnetic to the dynamic self. A quote from F. Hartman in Paracelsus, Life and Prophecies. There is an invisible universe within the visible one, a world of causes within the world of effects. There is force within matter, and the two are one, and are dependent for their existence on a third, which is the mysterious cause of their existence. There is a world of soul within a world of matter, and the two are one, and caused by the world of spirit. Suggestions for meditation. To get a fuller grasp of the numinously beautiful structure of the I Ching and the transcendent reality which it reflects, one should meditate on each of the hexagrams as often as possible. One can never exhaust their meaning. The first two hexagrams, because they are the cosmic parents of all the others, are especially rich in their associations. Here are a few suggestions for meditation. 1. Compare and contrast the general ideas in the first three hexagrams, noting how the third is a logical progression of the first two. 2. The Confucian commentary on the dynamic is particularly rich in meaning. Read it over and over again. It contains the principles of the work as outlined in more detail in the other hexagrams. Compare the sixth sentence with the ideas in hexagram number 20, contemplation. And 3, compare the first two hexagrams with hexagram number 11, harmony, and number 12, divorcement, noting the implications of the symbolism in terms of the proper management of the work. We will next go back to our primary hexagram 43 and read our changing line, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. It takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 6 has the general context beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Hexagram 43, changing line 6. 43 is, again, resoluteness, James Dekorne calls it. Changing line 6, leg. The sixth line, magnetic, shows its subject without any helpers on whom to call. Her end will be evil. Wilhelm/Baines, no cry. In the end, misfortune comes. Blofeld, in the end, misfortune will come without warning. Lou, without a cry, misfortune in the end. If you get this line, you will have difficulty in a new undertaking. Ritsema/Karcher, without crying out, completing, possessing a pitfall. Wu, he has no one to call for help. It will be foreboding in the end. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, there is the misery of having no one whom to call, none on whom to call. The end will be that she cannot continue any longer. Wilhelm/Baines, the misfortune of not crying out should in the end not be allowed to persist. Blofeld, this unheralded misfortune will be due to our failure to persist to the end. Ritsema/Karcher, without crying out's pitfall, completing, not permitting, long living indeed. Cry out or outcry, howl, is call out, proclaim, signal, order, command, mark, label, or sign. Cleary too. There cannot be growth in the end. At the end, the 5 lines below epitomize the exhortations and admonitions of sages to the strong who gather together. Here, one who is weak is at the top, and even though correct, is unable to call forth caution for preparedness, so in the end cannot grow. Wu, the foreboding of having no one to call for help will come before long. Leg, the subject of the 6th line standing above may be easily disposed of. Notes and paraphrases. Su, just as victory is at hand, the man finds no helpers to eradicate the remaining evil. The evil conceals itself only to spring up again at a later time. Wing, danger comes from a seed of evil in your own self, perhaps a self-delusion or conceit that blinds you. Just when you feel you may relax your resolve and continue without helpers, it will cause you to err. misfortune. Anthony, we need not harbor anger or hold on to bad memories to remind ourselves that the situation is unresolved. We must leave correction or punishment of the evil inferiors to the sage, as this is not our province of action. Editor, despite Legg's one-sentence dismissal of this line in his annotation, there is a great deal of ambiguity here. Notice the range of interpretations for the Confucian commentary. None of them say the same thing in English, and Wilhelm's is so labored as to be virtually meaningless. These are strong clues that the text may be ambiguous in the original Chinese, because Blofeld's translation of howl, outcry, as warning makes plausible sense. At its most neutral, the line can depict an unexpected catastrophe. Also, note that although blame is implied for line 6 via the symbolic structure of the hexagram, its actual text contains no value judgment, and as a magnetic line, it remains correctly placed at the top. To complicate things even further, the message can be interpreted as either the elimination or the escape of an inferior force, and depending on the context of the question, one can meditate for hours to ascertain what exactly is meant. In a differentiated multiverse, there will always be forces requiring reconciliation and synthesis. Nothing is ever eradicated. If this is the only changing line, the new hexagram becomes the dynamic, with a corresponding line depicting the consequences of arrogance. A quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. The shadow cannot be eliminated. It is the ever-present dark brother or sister. Whenever we fail to see where it stands, there is likely to be trouble afoot. For then it is certain to be standing behind us. The adequate question, therefore, never is, have I a shadow problem? Have I a negative side? But rather, where does it happen to be right now? When we cannot see it, it is time to beware. James Dekorne breaks changing line 6 down into 4 possible succinct definitions, A, B, C, and D. A, the image suggests the disempowerment of an inferior force. Quarantine without allies results in elimination of authority or influence. A negative inferior force is terminated due to lack of support. B, the image suggests a sudden, unexpected misfortune of some sort. C, the image suggests a demonically stubborn force which escapes rectification. Or D, you are alone without allies in a vulnerable position or questionable endeavor. I will now do a randomly card drawn reading of a verse from the Tao Te Ching while trying to sum up this reading today. So the primary hexagram, which I-ming called as 43 parting, showed dewy lake or marsh above heaven, and this has to do with part of it, I think in the commentary section of I-ming specifically, rain going up into the sky, and it shows the superior man or the sage or the wise person, essentially, that they don't presume upon virtue, and being in a high position, they do their best to rain down blessings on those below, like a cloud would from the sky. Heaven supports dewy lake or marsh, which is strength beneath that of joyfulness, I believe. Dewy lake or marsh is exchanging with others, hearing each other out, and delights in inner and outer conversation. Hexagram 1, the dynamic or heaven, is one of the 4 primal hexagrams, and is the very first that sets everything off, which is all firm lines and is like the father principle. This has strength above strength and is not necessarily what the action of that strength is, but more so the buildup and potential of strength that is available. I was going to turn to Hilary Barrett for these two because I think both of them, she said some really great stuff. 43, she says, it's a time for communication, not for fighting. In Hexagram 43, it will serve you better to focus with clear intention on what you're moving towards rather than what you're reacting against. And in the sequence, it follows on Hexagram 42, increasing and not reaching an end must mean breakthrough, and so deciding follows. Deciding means breaking through. As more and more is poured in, the limits must surely break. Instead of traveling with the cycles from increase to decrease, you take a positive decision to use and share the blessings. And then creative force, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Through constancy, this brings out intrinsic potential and yields a harvest of positive results. To be constant is to be true to your intent, faithfully aligning all your choices with your original vision and carrying your understanding through in practice and over time. Creative force is the absolute power of heaven that moves the stars in their courses and makes the seasons turn. A noble one finds this creative forces within him, as close as his own breath. It does not need to pause and rest, and nor does he. Also, with heaven, that hexagram, it talked about that in Chinese thought, it's not heaven above us, it's heaven within us. And in all things, essentially. And that force that maybe one might even call chi or creative life force, that energy. One thing that brings to mind is having the Kundalini energy, it talked about as well, being something that builds up in the body. We can have energy build up in the body and it turn into anxiety or a depression if we don't have it figured out, or if it's shaky in weird ways and we don't know what to do with it. It can be completely overwhelming. In the microcosmic orbit meditation, that is an ancient Chinese or Taoist meditation, and even in a lot of the readings that we'll do, we'll hear from time to time, it'll say, empty the mind to fill the belly. This talks about the upper and lower dantians, and that there's three, and there's a middle one that's near your heart or in your heart chakra area. The top is the crown, and the bottom is kind of 4 inches below the navel, that kind of area, so sort of between the sacral and the root. That is an area that is meant to store energy, and it's safe to do so there. So something that might be helpful if someone were feeling overwhelmed by energy, to do a visualization of moving that energy down into that space, the lower dantian, and housing it there. And from that space, it can be used to help strengthen the organs and the body. And one way that is good to do that is to do that meditation, the microcosmic orbit, which I've left some links in my community page, or some videos that you could check out regarding that. But it involves moving the energy up the back from that lower dantian position and visualizing it coming up and moving up to the crown of the head and leaving it there for a little bit, and then moving it down again the front of the body. And I practiced that, and a particularly intense time of doing it, I kind of just wanted to move up at its own pace. You picture as you're breathing in, it's raising and up your back. When it came down right around in the heart space, it was kind of triggery for me. I feel as though stuck energy in the body can cause us issues and be stagnant, or even create kind of like an area where things are trapped and you can't react the way you would naturally be able to if we weren't hemmed in by all the things that we're afraid of, and past experiences where we've reached out and touched a stove and been burned. That etches itself into a circle around us of dots that eventually becomes completely, it bubble boys us. It gives us a psychic, mental barrier between us and the rest of the world, which is in ourselves. It's not something that truly exists in any real way. We're still all interconnected and interdependent. And so a healthy thing to do might be to try and do a meditation similar to the microcosmic orbit and move that energy around the body and attempt to deliver the blessings of heaven to those below, right? That kind of an idea, and doing that for yourself internally, and trying to move the energy around so that it's not trapped. So anyway, that might be a practical thing that this could be referring to as well. And then in our changing line 6 of hexagram 43 parting, it puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, takes precedence over all other elements, and is the most focused part of the reading. It showed the only yin line in hexagram 43 is that top 6th line. So it is similar to a corrupt official or a weak ruler, or somebody that is causing, even if all of the lines in it are sages and strong and wise, having one person in government that is causing issues is enough to bring the sage anxiety, is how it's said. And so the idea is that these lines are pushing that line out from the top. The changing line is a little bit ambiguous because partly it could mean that the top line, the weak line, is escaping, or it could mean that it is being dealt with effectively. And if it escapes, the idea is that at any time it can come back and wreak havoc, and that essentially it's an inauspicious line to receive, because it says that, I'm going to read it in I-ming's Taoist teaching. That part is particularly good, I think. But basically, there is something that the sage can do. It has to do with at the point where weakness and the, the calculating consciousness, or the discriminatory consciousness, that when it tries to take charge of affairs towards the end of development, you can take over as the sage and basically push it out or deal with it so that all of the lines become firm lines, strong or heaven yang lines, and to basically complete the work essentially in essence. Let's see here, 43. I think this might have been it. Okay, let's just do the reading of the changing line 6. No call, in the end there is misfortune. Explanation. At the end of parting, the aggregate of mundanity has receded, leaving only the single mundanity of the discriminatory consciousness as yet undissolved. At that time it should be parted with, and its force then must pass away. When the celestial energy makes one more advance, the mundane energy will then dissolve. Therefore, there is no call, in the end there is misfortune. No call of mundane energy is none other than the call of truth, or of celestial energy. The final misfortune of mundane energy is the ultimate fortune of celestial energy. This is parting in which the celestial energy becomes pure and complete, while mundane energy vanishes entirely. So in the path of parting from mundanity, it will not do to be too adamant or too yielding. One must have flexibility within firmness and firmness within flexibility. Parting gradually, advancing a portion of celestial energy, repelling a portion of mundanity, so that celestial energy advances to wholeness and mundanity spontaneously sublimates. If you don't know how to operate the process with appropriate intensity and relaxation, and wish to accomplish it rapidly, that will, on the contrary, foster mundane energy and damage celestial energy, so that after all, you will be unable to repel mundanity. So the path of repelling mundanity requires deep understanding of process. That also makes me think of the Kundalini rising up, that over intellectualizing a process is not as helpful as imagining in kind of like a shamanic or meditative way this energy moving throughout your body. And sometimes people are able to do things shamanically or even in like a what is it called? A hypnotized kind of way in their subconscious, get better results sometimes than people are able to get in healthcare in various ways and avenues. So, and if we're all just energy vibrating around, or like the song of heaven, that makes sense. So the discriminatory consciousness is something that we're supposed to give way to the Tao, the sage principle, and move the energy around, take care of the anxious, shaky energy and house it in that lower dantian, and circle it when we can around the body in that image. Another way to do that is to imagine the sun rising behind you, you're facing to the west, and so the sun is rising in the east above and behind you, and it comes up and over and then wraps back around all the way down beneath the planet, way through space, and then comes back again. So it's just doing these huge cycles. Even talking about it like that, it feels very energetic all over me like that. But yeah, I would highly recommend that meditation to anyone, the microcosmic orbit. Maybe I'll leave a link to it in the description box below, one of the videos that I've seen that's helpful, or a few. Now if we could get, so I'm gonna take that one and not all these, because that's a lot, but 17 is what we will read from the Tao Te Ching, verse 17. My copy is by Jia-Fu Fang and Jane English. The very highest is barely known by men. Then comes that which they know and love. Then that which is feared. Then that which is despised. He who does not trust enough will not be trusted. When actions are performed without unnecessary speech, people say, "We did it."